Hey, I've been coding for 8 years now, and I was pretty bad at coding. Well, sometimes I still think I am. Here's the thing about coding. As a programmer, there are moments when you would feel like you don't know anything, and that's around 80% of the time. And the other 20%, you feel like the master of the universe. Like you're smarter than everyone else, and you know everything about coding. In this video, I'm going to focus on that 80%. So how do we do this? I'm going to share 5 different times when I've experienced that feeling of I'm bad at coding. And with each experience, I will share a valuable insight that I took away from it. Something that I think every engineer should know. The first time I thought I was bad at coding, I was in university. I thought I wasn't good enough because everyone around me was so much better than me. They had more experience, they were smarter, they looked like they belonged, and I was there with hardly any coding experience, competing with all these people who were just better. I kept comparing my growth, my journey, my progress to that of others in my cohort. And that was the first big mistake that I made. In hindsight, I have realized that the key to being a good developer and a good coder is to stop comparing yourself to others. There is no comparison between the sun and the moon. They both shine when it's their time. I didn't come up with this, I saw it online, but it makes a lot of sense. So lesson number 1, if you ever feel like you're bad at coding, stop comparing yourself to others. They started somewhere else, you started somewhere else. There's no point comparing yourself to others. The next instance when I felt like I really sucked at programming was during the first internship that I ever did. I was under what is called the illusion of simplicity. My illusion of simplicity was broken because I finally saw that the world of programming was so much bigger than the bubble that I was in university. I thought I was bad because I was so overwhelmed. And this was the first time in my coding journey when I realized how much there is to learn and how huge this world of technology, coding, programming actually is. And what got me through this feeling of being overwhelmed and thinking I was bad at coding because there was so much to know and I didn't know it all, I got over it by doing these 2 things. The first thing I did was embracing the learning process. I told myself that I'm an intern and it's okay if I don't know everything. It's literally my job as an intern to learn and ask and develop my skills. And number 2, related to point number 1, was to feel like it's okay to ask for help, because me personally, I found it very difficult in the beginning to speak up and ask for help when I didn't know something. In hindsight, I realized that nobody's going to judge you for asking for help when you need it. This was probably the hardest time for me. Because for this, I faced rejection to the extent that I never had in my life before. And that was very difficult to not take personally and not feel like I'm bad at coding, that's why I'm not getting hired. For context, I was searching for an year-long internship during my university as part of a university program. In the program, you could basically choose to go to different colleges abroad and do an internship along with studying at that college. So I had chosen Stanford. I had gotten into the program, but to actually go, you had to find a year-long internship. And I had applied to like 100 plus companies in Silicon Valley. Out of those 100 companies, I had done about 10 plus interviews and gotten rejected to all of them. And I couldn't tell why I was being rejected. If you experience this feeling of rejection and that makes you think that you're bad at coding, it's a very normal thing to feel. I felt it and it was terrible. And here's how I got over it. When I actually sat and wrote down how I was feeling, I realized that I can either dwell over the rejections or I can take matters into my own hand and figure out what's wrong. The reason why I'm not getting hired is probably because there is a skill gap that I need to fill. I actually ended up replying to a lot of these companies that had rejected me and asked them what I was doing wrong or how I could improve myself and how could I become somebody that they would hire. And not all of them got back to me, but some of them did. And that's when I realized what I was missing. So at that point in my career, I was in year 2 of university. I had learned a few programming languages that I had to pick up during modules in uni. So things like C, Java, Python for side projects. But there was not one language that I knew so well that I could work on it for the whole day. And that's when I realized that I need to master one language. And that's what a lot of these companies were looking for as well. This was 2017, so JavaScript was very popular. I mean, it still is. So I decided to master JavaScript because then I could work both on the front end and the back end. And doing that actually helped me land an internship in Silicon Valley. So the lesson I learned is to view challenges and rejections as a learning opportunity. This one is interesting, and I really wonder how many other people may have felt this way before as well. Because I remember when I first started working full-time as a software engineer and I did my first pull request, I remember getting like 10 comments on it. They were not major, most of them were linting stuff, but I remember crying over it. Narrow down to what I was feeling, I think it would be called negative feedback. As a programmer, almost any change you make to a public repository is going to have to go through a review process. So you have to get used to the feeling of getting negative feedback. I think it's totally normal to feel bad and to take it personally if somebody gives your code a bad review. But that's the big lesson that I learned. Just because somebody gave your code a negative feedback, you don't have to take it personally. The way around it is to just say, oops, and make the change. Or if you don't agree with the comment, you can question it. You are gonna make like 1,000 pull requests and nobody is gonna care if one of them is bad. You are not a bad programmer and you are not bad at coding because you have bad reviews on your PR. Unless you get consistently bad reviews, then maybe you need to think about what you're doing wrong. Now I can detach myself away and I can learn to say, oh, I made that mistake. It's okay, I will just fix it. And I think that comes with just having done it so many times and having made those mistakes and realized that in hindsight, it's not a big deal. The last and maybe most important one was when I started my first full-time job. And this experience of feeling like I'm bad at coding and almost wanting to give up lasted for 6 months to a year. So a pretty long time. You can call it imposter syndrome. For me, when I look back, I just think of it as me not being good enough. I was the most junior engineer in my team and I felt like everyone was so much better than me, which was true. And we had brainstorming sessions. And during those sessions, for the first 6 months, I would not say anything. I would not give my opinion. I would not give any ideas. Firstly, because I didn't have any opinions, because I didn't know enough to have opinions. And second, I didn't want to say something or ask a question because I didn't want people around me to think like I was stupid and that I didn't know something that I was supposed to know. And that was such a wrong thing to do. It was about 6 months to a year later when I realized almost every engineer that I considered good did this one thing, which was they asked questions. Be it smart, stupid, complex, simple, any type of questions, they would just ask it. When I started to adopt this and started to ask questions myself, I realized that not only did I learn so much more, and more often than not, others have the same questions as you. Big lesson that I learned was to just speak up and ask. So you need to ask yourself if coding is something that you're truly passionate about, and is this what you want to do? Is this what makes you happy? If you do, then stop doubting yourself. Feeling not good enough is not a feeling we get truly over ever, but I think it gets better over time. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one.